It's the end of summer now, but the days are still long and hot. The sun seems to hang in the sky forever. The once bustling summer tourist town was hours and hours alone, but just for one more week. It was a virtual ghost town. For some reason, Abel's school district started 1 week later than the rest, which meant we had this whole paradise to ourselves. No boats, no jet skis, no skidoos or skidon'ts, no side-by-sides. It was just as pristine as I remember it when I was his age. I haven't seen it that way in a long time. This year's especially wet spring meant that the reservoir was full. This time last year we could walk clear across, and you'd only have to jump over a small creek to get to the other side. So come along with us as we embark on the last camping trip of the summer. I had taken the liberty of hooking the camper up before I went to work. And this morning when I got off, all we had to do was pack a few last-minute items. Katie had already stocked the pantry and the fridge while I was away at work, so all that was really left now was clothing. Finally, it was time to take off. For the next hour and a half, I'd put on my best dad concentration face while towing the camper through the windy hills, until finally, we laid eyes on our final destination. Seeing the reservoir at capacity and knowing that I only had 5 minutes left to drive was a huge relief.
Decided to try something new out. Wanted to camp on the beach this time. A little bit of a trek to get there with the camper. I think it's gonna be worth it.
The temperature might have helped sway our current decision to camp on the beach.
Oh, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's flatter? I mean, it's flatter over there. It might be easier to level.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Unhitched, unloaded, and moderately level. Now, it was time to recreate.
Right now.
Do you believe in heaven above? Do you believe in love?
Do.
Something.
Something.
Never been lucky in love.
Well, I don't think we'll be getting any copyright infringements for that. A little bit later on, Abel and I decided to take our evening drive down one of the old logging roads that we drive every time we go there. Abel recently watched Karate Kid, became obsessed with bonsais, and started Taekwondo. In that order. This is the part where he tries to convince me to trespass and scale a cliff to retrieve a bonsai tree on the very top. Like a good father, I told him that if we were going to trespass, we'd have to wait until the sun goes down.
Well, we're just walking on it.
My ears to walk on.
Just kidding. I told him no. After that, we cruised on over to the local gas station / supermarket to get an icy. They used to serve red or blue, and if you brought back the cup that you bought from them last year, they'd give you half off. Unfortunately, this year, the machine was down. So, we went back to camp and tried our hand at a little fishing. This used to be one of our favorite places to go kokanee fishing, which is one of my favorite fish to eat. Unfortunately, with egregious limits and overfishing, plus the introduction of the king salmon to mitigate what was an overpopulation of kokanee at the time, well, now it's pretty near impossible to catch them. So after a while, we decided to hang up the rods and just do some paddleboarding instead. I am definitely not the world's best paddleboarder, and Abel instantly recognized that and hijacked my vessel. The only disturbance on the water that night was from us. If you look close right here, you can see a fish jump right above Katie's legs. Right there. With the sun set and the fire stoked, it was time to tidy up around camp and roast some marshmallows.
Gotta stop going in and out of the camper.
The next morning, I rose with the sun to try my hand at a little fly fishing. Waking up early has always been difficult for me, but this morning seemed to be an exception. When I was a kid, I used to fly fish all the time. And as I grew older, other hobbies and responsibilities robbed me of some time on the water. I was eagerly waiting to get back out and shake the rust off. Usually, Abel wakes up before everyone in the house. When I tried to wake him this morning to come fishing, he was more interested in staying in bed, which tells me he probably had a lot of fun yesterday. So today, I'll just be enjoying some alone time. Yesterday, we were praying for a breeze to pick up. And of course, this morning, as soon as I started fly fishing, the wind picked up. And honestly, that shouldn't surprise me. It tends to do that every time the sun rises. From behind me, I had heard the familiar call of an old friend. This kingfisher has been fishing here for quite a while. He usually does a lot better than me. I must have tried at least 20 times catching him on film diving, but it's difficult to anticipate which direction they're going and they're extremely fast. And this was the best that I was able to get. He'll stay here until the water freezes, and then he'll move on. And if I'm back before then, we'll try again. With less than ideal conditions, I decided to go ahead and hang it up for the morning. On the other side of camp, Abel was already stirring about. He had also noticed the kingfisher frequenting this little fishing hole, so he decided to wet a line too. There was actually a lot of smallmouth bass in here, but none of them quite big enough to take the hook that we had. So later on, we switched over to some smaller gear and caught a few of them, just so we could say that we wouldn't be returning without catching fish. Of course, none of them were actually worth showing off. The rest of the day was spent exploring and goofing off. Later on, I would give it one last try at fly fishing. Unfortunately, I didn't catch anything here either. It might have had something to do with me repeatedly slapping the water with my fly line. And here I am doing the walk of shame. That afternoon, the water turned to glass, and Katie and Abel thought it would be a fun idea to see if they could paddleboard all the way across to the other side of the reservoir. Usually, this would be out of the question because of boaters and jet skis. But being that we still had the whole place to ourselves, this seemed like a perfect opportunity. We only have the 2 paddle boards, so I stayed back and got some drone footage. And when they made it to the other side, I drove over and gave them a lift back to camp. Once we were safely back to camp, we decided to play one of our favorite camping board games, or card game, the Oregon Trail, which is based on the computer game that you probably played as a child if you're old like me. You probably remember buying supplies, bullets, medicine, oxen, and fording rivers. Dang it, I died of dysentery. It was shaping up to be another perfect evening enjoying the sunset by a campfire. And this right here, these are the moments that I live for. All right, I know that I said that I had already given up on fishing, but it just looked too perfect, and I had to get out there and give it one last shot before we left. And while I was doing that, Abel was silently trying to figure out what he would accidentally hurt himself with. And that's just something you gotta let them figure out. With the kingfisher watching me from across the way, I returned to his fishing hole. But like yesterday, still no luck. And the time had come. It was time to hitch up.
Well, you can probably see we're starting to get more neighbors. It's because it's Friday. The only good part about that is we are leaving. So I'm kind of happy to leave, but also sad because it's beautiful. And we had the place to ourselves for a while and it was awesome. Also disappointed because it's the last trip of our summer. Abel starts school next week, which means we will be limited to being weekend warriors just like everyone else. Currently pretty lucky that my job doesn't require us to do that, but It will for the school year. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. And if you didn't like it, well, that stings a little.